Little girl begged bikers to arrest her. Watch what bikers did. The late afternoon sun slanted through the dusty air of the roadside diner parking lot, casting long shadows that stretched like weary fingers. Chrome gleamed on the row of Harleys parked near the entrance, their riders, leather-clad, bearded, faces etched with the miles they'd ridden, leaning against their bikes, sharing quiet laughs over lukewarm coffee. They were the Iron Reapers, a club known more for their loyalty to each other than any outlaw reputation, but their appearance alone was enough to make most townsfolk cross the street. Then, a small figure emerged from the alley beside the diner. She couldn't have been more than 8, her dress torn and smudged with dirt, one scuffed sneaker missing its lace. Her eyes, wide and impossibly dark with terror, scanned the bikers like a trapped animal. She hesitated, trembling, then took a shaky step forward, then another, until she stood directly in front of the group's president, a man named Tank, whose arms were thick as tree trunks, and whose gaze usually held a quiet, intimidating stillness. The laughter died instantly. All eyes turned to the tiny, trembling girl. She clutched the hem of her dress, knuckles white. Her breath hitched in a sob that seemed too big for her small frame. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. Then louder, desperate, tears spinning freely down her cheeks. "Please, arrest me." The words hung in the air, sharp and absurd. Arrest her? Tank exchanged a bewildered glance with his vice president, Razor. The other bikers shifted, their tough exteriors momentarily cracking under the weight of this impossible request from a child who looked like she hadn't eaten in days. "Why, sweetheart?" Tank asked, his voice surprisingly gentle, crouching down slowly so he wasn't towering over her. The girl flinched at the movement, but held her ground, her eyes fixed on his. Because if you take me away," she choked out, fresh sobs racking her body. "He can't hurt my little brother anymore." The air turned to ice. The casual camaraderie vanished, replaced by a sudden, focused intensity. Razor knelt beside Tank, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a hard line of concern. "Who hurts your brother, honey?" he asked softly. My stepdad," she whispered, shrinking in on herself. "He gets mad, real mad. When I'm home, he yells at me, hits me, but when I'm not there—" her voice dropped to a terrified whisper, barely audible. "He hurts Tommy. He says it's my fault. He says if I wasn't there to make him angry, he wouldn't hurt Tommy. So if you take me to jail, he'll leave Tommy alone. Please, just take me." The raw, heartbreaking logic of a child trying to shield her sibling with her own suffering shattered the biker's world. This wasn't about petty crime or rebellion. It was about survival, about a little girl sacrificing herself on a cross of misplaced guilt and terror. Tank felt a familiar, protective rage surge within him, but he tamped it down, focusing on the fragile life trembling before him. "Hey, look at me," Tank said, his voice low and steady, meeting her tear-filled eyes. "We're not going to arrest you, okay? That's not how this works. But we are going to help you. Both you and Tommy." The girl's eyes widened further, confusion mixing with the fear. But he'll be so mad." "He won't get the chance," Razor stated, his voice like gravel, already pulling out his phone. "Not ever again." What happened next wasn't a scene of violence, but one of swift, coordinated compassion. Tank gently wrapped his large, surprisingly careful hand around the girl's small, cold one. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily." "Okay. Lily, you're safe now. We've got you." He guided her towards the diner, away from the prying eyes of the street. Inside, the waitress, Doris, who knew the Reapers well enough to know their bark was worse than their bite, took one look at Lily's state and the grim faces of the bikers and immediately cleared a booth, bringing hot chocolate and a clean towel without a word. While Tank and another biker, gentle giant Moose, stayed with Lily, offering quiet reassurance and letting her sip the warm drink, Razor made 2 calls. The first was to the local sheriff, a man who, despite initial wariness of the club, had learned over the years they were solid citizens who looked out for their town. Razor spoke low and fast, conveying the situation with grim urgency. The second call was to Child Protective Services. Within minutes, the quiet parking lot transformed. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up, followed quickly by a CPS worker's sedan. The sight of the imposing bikers standing protectively around the tiny traumatized girl as the authorities arrived spoke volumes. They didn't hover aggressively. They formed a quiet, respectful barrier, their presence a silent promise. We see you. We believe you. You're not alone. As the CPS worker gently spoke with Lily, confirming details and arranging immediate safe placement for her and her brother Tommy, who was found unharmed but terrified at home, swiftly removed by another officer, Tank watched. He saw the crushing weight of fear slowly, incrementally lift from Lily's small shoulders as she realized the nightmare might truly be ending. She looked up at him, a flicker of something besides terror in her eyes, maybe the first fragile seedling of hope. Before she was led to the CPS vehicle, Lily turned back. She walked straight to Tank, who knelt again. Without a word, she threw her thin arms around his neck in a fierce, desperate hug. He held her gently, patting her back, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Thank you," she whispered into his leather vest. Tank cleared his throat, his voice thick. "You be brave, Lily. Real brave. And you take care of your brother, okay? We'll be checking in." As the cars drove away, carrying Lily and Tommy towards safety and healing, the Iron Reapers stood together in the fading light. The chrome of their bikes caught the last golden rays. The tough exteriors were back in place, but the air hummed with a different energy. Not the roar of engines, but the quiet thrum of purpose fulfilled. They hadn't arrested a little girl. They'd rescued one. They'd shielded an innocent. In the face of pure, desperate courage from the most vulnerable, these men with weathered faces and hearts forged in loyalty had chosen compassion. And in that dusty parking lot, watching the taillights disappear, they knew sometimes the most unexpected hearts hold the deepest wells of humanity. Faith, it seemed, could be restored one small trembling plea at a time. If you believe in kindness and second chance, please like, share, and subscribe to ACA Storytales for more emotional stories. Your support helps us spread hope to millions. Thanks for watching.